This treacherous harbor is home to serpent hunters, dock gangs, and smugglers from across Runeterra. Fortunes are made, and ambitions are shattered in the blink of an eye. Welcome to Bilgewater and a new deck quest. In this series, we take a look at a card, concept, region, or anything else in Runeterra, and we try to analyze it. Usually this includes some gameplay, but for this video we're just going to talk about the design of my personal favorite region in Runeterra. Bilgewater. Why is it my favorite region? I don't know. Home to aggressive pirates looking for opportunities to plunder.
Time to get rich!
Rogues and swindlers trying to steal what's yours and make a profit.
Goes to a good cause. Me!
Sea monsters devouring everything in sight if you don't stop them from getting too close. Slippery fish playing tricks while they slowly chip away at your health.
My wings! To me!
In this wacky, colorful region, you'll find all sorts of characters and cards.
Never lost a fair game. But played one.
Every region operates under a certain theme or playstyle. Demacia, in the lore, is a mighty kingdom with a prestigious military history, with the ideals of justice, honor and duty, and most notably, a fierce pride of their cultural heritage. Demacia hates magic, and this is what currently drives a lot of lore and plot points forward in their story. So it makes sense that in Runeterra, they are all about beefy units with square stats, meaning their health and attack are often the same. The spells available to the region are stat boosts and manual ways to force combat like the spell Single Combat, making them great at forcing a duel, but lacking when it comes to interaction outside of throwing direct punches. They have no card draw either, so running out of units on your board will also mean running out of options to secure a victory. The region has a lot of similarities with Noxus and their army, but where Demacia is more of the no man left behind, Noxus has the beliefs of victory at any cost, even if that means casualties. Just make sure to leave your mark on the battle before you bite the dust. Piltover is almost the polar opposite of Demacia, as a primarily spell-based region that focuses on drawing and comboing spell effects. So that's Demacia and their region identity. Bilgewater, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated to identify their strength and their weaknesses. After some of the nerfs they received, they lost a big part of their pirate and plundering identity. Despite those nerfs, they still have some very clear strength, being a flexible region like Piltover. Having card draw and powerful standalone units like Jack Butcher, Zap Sprayfin, and the recently added Wiggly Burblefish makes Bilgewater a desirable region option for other decks. There is one core theme that Bilgewater lives and dies by, and no, it's not pirates. It's high risk and high reward. Let's use one example of a card that everybody just loved to hate. Make it rain. Okay, whoa. Let's slow down. Pause right there. This situation right here is most likely the reason why Make It Rain ended up getting nerfed. There's no good outcome here. Either the player that casts Make It Rain feels a certified sniper because he wants to hit exactly Leona, the priestess, and the enemy nexus, or he whiffs completely and doesn't hit either unit and the Daybreak player can laugh at his misery. But this is exactly what Bilgewater is and does. You take a risk, and if it pays off, you gain a massive tempo swing in your favor. Alright, now go ahead. Spray and pray. Oh, well, look at that. I guess it was me who pulled the trigger, judging by that precise aim. Yeah, alright. Okay, so that example wasn't great, because it's the RNG that decided what card would get hit and what card wouldn't get hit. Let's look at Powder Kegs instead. One of the most genius concepts I've ever seen implemented in a card game. So clearly, Make It Rain turns into a nuke when the spell is backed up by Powder Kegs. But your opponent can see you slowly stacking up the barrels. They know you're about to unleash enormous explosions. So when you run into situations like these, you have to make sure your spell goes off with the barrel still intact. Your opponent gets a chance to remove the barrel before the spell resolves, resulting in mind games and countless spells fizzing because the barrel will eventually blow up.
Never stop shooting.
High risk and even higher reward. Every champion currently playable in Runeterra that comes from Bilgewater does this in one way or another. For this video, let's look at them one by one and figure out what makes them risky to play and what is their ultimate payoff if everything goes well. Starting with a champion that seems like a little bit of a misfit, Nautilus. He's an odd champion in his town of pirates and swindlers, because Nautilus isn't a champion you can jam into any list and make it work. He needs exactly two different types of cards to enable the deck he's in, tossing, or drawing, and sea monsters. Tossing is the risk, sea monsters are the reward. The race is on to get deep by throwing your cards overboard into the sea and getting to that sweet 15 cards remaining threshold. You're rewarded with the satisfying deep sound. Your deck takes a plunge and goes underwater. You're now in deep territory and sea monsters are showing up to devour the opponent. An absolutely amazing concept in a card game. I wish the deck was a little more flexible when it comes to the execution, but the feeling and playstyle are absolutely spot on. The risk involved isn't as simple as I hope I don't toss my good cards, it's also the fear of decking yourself. By tossing your cards, you can get pretty damn close sometimes to running out of cards completely and losing the game instantly because you ran out of cards to draw. Good thing Nautilus' partner in crime Pyke is there to give your opponent the exact same fate, but even worse, because their champions are gone. I'm a very big fan of the new Spice that got added to deep decks in the recent expansion too. Lost Riches is a fantastic card and it makes the deck a lot more exciting to play. Sea Scarab is a little more controversial. Getting this small sea monster from Jewel Hunters or Slaughter Dogs isn't great, but the early tossing this guy can do makes me happy it exists. If you ask me, Deep is such a brilliant way of bringing a concept into a card game while staying true to the identity of a region. Sea monsters are completely badass, and the fact you're working towards giving them that +3/+3 and making them true forces to be reckoned with by tossing cards out of your deck and mitigating that risk somehow by overwhelming your opponent while you have those sea monsters on the board is so cool. And it really goes to show how the Runeterra devs are not afraid to try new, unique ideas while still feeling fresh and rewarding when played right.
Excuse my impertinence. Come along! There's room for everyone.
This next champion is also a fishy boy, but he's not quite a sea monster. Tahm Kench is another design that is incredibly smart when you think about how he fits into design philosophy of Bilgewater. Just like Nautilus, he's a strange one when it comes to the good in every deck feel of Bilgewater. He requires very specific cards to keep him alive and healthy, because just like in League of Legends, he takes a beating but never seems to actually die.
My constitution is unflappable. Table for one, if you'll oblige.
Where Nautilus found a partner in Pyke, Tahm Kench took to Soraka to provide him with much needed heals. What's so damn smart about this deck is how the risk and reward idea is perfectly implemented with Tahm Kench. The reward? Gobbling up enemies and removing them from play with nothing more than a 2-mana spell. Level up Tahm and they are gone forever.
Out you get, child.
The risk? Not being able to protect Tahm and releasing all the units inside of him at once, filling the opponent's board with multiple units. This is where Soraka and all the healing spells come into play to mitigate that risk, because trust me, you really don't want Tahm to die. He's your removal engine, and because he can take damage on command, he works towards that win condition of the Starspring landmark that's included in his decks. Self-damage and healing is the name of the game when you add Tahm to your deck. I love this direction of a heal deck, because it's not something I have ever seen other card games do. They usually play it safe with Paladin or Priest looking cards that do some healing and get some value. But I mean, I kinda get it. Fish Mafia, healing goats, that's not something a lot of people would get excited about when they hear those terms without context. But us Runeterra players, we're either filled with joy when you think about clutching that win by getting to the 22 health on a Starspring, or filled with dread when you think about that time that Tahm Kench ate every single unit you played. Summoning Tahm can be a big risk, but this Bilgewater deck is all about mitigation of that risk and turning them into advantages with the Soraka and the Starspring.
Today we have determined our own fate.
Who says I don't share? Blue as the Serpentine.
The Jack of all trades, the value machine, Mr. Flexible, the best card in the game. You might have heard any of those phrases when people talk about Twisted Fate, and all of them are true. But first of all, it's amazing how a champion designed around the idea of throwing magic cards is implemented in a card game. His design is smooth, fluent, and my god, that level up animation.
Looks like I'm on a hot streak.
Props to the Runeterra team for making a card master so cool and thematic in a virtual card game. It's really hard to look at Twisted Fate and think of any risk that could be involved when you play a card this flexible and adaptable to the game state. And that's because there isn't really one for TF himself, but more so when you look at some of the cards that do well in a deck with him. Pool Shark, Pick a Card, and the Brash Gambler, for example, are good at drawing multiple cards at the same time to power level him. The risk? Well, because you're drawing so many cards in an unfair way, it's balanced out by making these cards fleeting, meaning they disappear at the end of the turn. You don't want to draw a fleeting copy of your late game bomb and be unable to play the card because you don't have enough mana yet. All in all, this risk is pretty minimal though because of the way Twisted Fate decks are played. They usually include cheap cards like the current Burblefish variants that are floating around. You might have seen them. Twisted Fate will be the powerhouse of the region for as long as he stays the way he is. Card draw is just a very powerful tool for any deck in a card game. A champion that revolves around this team is going to be powerful no matter what, even if his current level 2 is a little bit on the strong side. A champion like Miss Fortune got nerfed because of how easy it was to level her up and how she wins you the game once he does, and Twisted Fate kinda fits that description too. With the way the game currently is, there are 3 champions that are clearly above the rest when you consider how powerful they are with no additional synergy. Zoe, Aphelios, and Twisted Fate. Put those champions in a deck and they will generate value.
Looks like I'm on a hot streak.
Gift for you. Spread your fire. Get 'em all.
Powder, barrels, explosions and collateral damage to the enemy nexus. Plundering is a huge theme in many parts of Bilgewater, but Gangplank is the ultimate payoff for hitting the enemy nexus as often as you can.
Looks like the tides of Bilgewater have shifted again, my friend.
With the chaotic and almost cartoony nature of Bilgewater, it's amazing how many cards have the "oops, I tried to do a thing and I hit your nexus too" effect. Make It Rain can hit the enemy nexus. Powder Monkeys deal 1 direct damage when they explode. The big Riptide Rex, and let's not forget about the elusive fish that hit you from underwater without being able to block them. All things that will deal chip damage to your nexus. Gangplank is everything that makes Bilgewater the region it is. It's a big shame he only sees play in Pirate Aggro right now. I miss the Sejuani Gangplank Plunder decks. It was just so much fun seeing all those explosions, cannonballs, and board-wide freezes go off at the same time. With that said, I hope we can bring the Pirate King back to his former glory in an aggressive mid-range deck where getting value from Plunder effect is the main win condition, rather than just all-out aggression in his Pirate Aggro deck. The risk and reward with Gangplank, from what I can tell, mostly revolves around the way you use his barrels. The Dreadway Deckhand, Petty Officer, and more Powder are all cards that summon barrels so you can make your explosive spells even more explosive. The counterplay with barrels creates amazing interactions with your opponent too. Like in the example I showed at the start of the video, if you try to cast a fast speed spell with a barrel to back it up, your opponent gets a chance to reply. Every damaging spell in the game is either fast or slow speed, so your opponent needs to interact with his own fast speed spell if he wants to destroy the barrel before it explodes. Unless they're playing that one purple region with the mountain. They have this card that goes shh, and for some reason an inanimate object doesn't function anymore after that. But besides that, it creates very fun western cowboy style standoffs. Oh, remember when I said there are no burst speed spells that deal direct damage? That wasn't true, there's exactly one in the game. Warning Shot lets you blow up your barrel for at least 2 damage instantly if you really feel like denying your opponent. One of the most annoying champions in League of Legends makes an appearance in Runeterra 2. Dodging spells, being slippery, and one-shotting people with his shark. Only that last thing is something he's not capable of doing in Runeterra, because rather than killing something in the blink of an eye, Fizz chips away at your health until there isn't any left. This fish is basically immune to direct removal, instantly nullifying the spell with his troll pull if you attempt to target the blue amphibian. Is he an amphibian? I'm not actually sure. I think Fizz is supposed to be some kind of ancient yordle. Imagine being tens of thousands of years old, and people only remember you for being such a pain and a nuisance. Anyway, before the TF Fizz deck actually made an appearance, Fizz was seen as a meme champion that you play if you're just looking for a good time. Well, times changed, and just the sight of him will make people cringe, because he's played in what can be considered the best deck Runeterra has ever seen. The main issue is Burblefish though, because of how quickly it gets discounted. Fizz's card package is pretty hit or miss. Shell Shockers and Slippery Wave Rider see pretty much no play, but Zap Sprayfin and Burblefishes have been deck-defining cards since they got released.
Hey Zap, need a hand? Can't say no to Fizz.
The tricky part when playing Fizz comes from the fact that you need to play one spell to give him elusive, but always have another spell as backup to dodge removal from the opponent. At this point, I don't think anyone is stupid enough to play a removal spell on Fizz unless it's a life or death situation, or if the Fizz player's hand is empty. But still, it does require some thought.
Fortune favors the bold.
And lastly, my personal favorite champion in Runeterra, Miss Fortune. I have a literal statue of her in my room, so it's no surprise for most people to hear that she is my favorite. Scouts are just incredibly satisfying to me. Attacking multiple times and seeing her shoot the board from the backline is such a simple but game-breaking effect. The visual and sounds never get boring either. Miss Fortune is mostly played with Scouts and Pirate aggro. Scouts are her best archetype because every time you attack, she shoots her ability. Scouts attacking twice progress her level up and generates the most value for her. She does give a little love tap to the Nexus for 1 damage every time she shoots 2, so it helps with plundering and getting that little bit of chip damage. As far as risk and reward go, I don't really know how Miss Fortune shows that style. Her champion spell is Make It Rain for risky RNG, but her play pattern is all about keeping her safe and letting other chumps attack for her. Scout decks were mostly played as 37 Demacia cards for the Allegiance from Bannerman with 3 Misfortunes, but at some point even that deck instead started running cards like Fortune Croaker and Pool Shark because of the card draw that Bilgewater can provide. Oh, and by the way, one thing I really like about Gangplank is how you feel great when you attack with him once he's leveled because of the overwhelm he gets. The explosion he brings during his attack removes health from blockers, so his overwhelm deals even more damage. It just feels nice, you know? It's not like that nerf to Misfortune broke my heart or anything. I'm totally fine. Please give her overwhelm back. And with that, we covered every champion currently playable in the region Bilgewater. All of the main mechanics available to the region come into play with their champions in one way or another. Nautilus with Toss and Deep, Twisted Fate with Draw, Fleeting and Nab, Gangplank with Powder Kegs and Plundering, Fizz with Attune and Drawing, Tahm Kench with some of his self-damage cards and ways to activate healing synergies, and Misfortune with Scouts. So there's one mechanic available to Bilgewater that sees almost no real synergy with their champs or other cards. Vulnerable. The targets that make the easiest marks. This is one of the more interesting mechanics Bilgewater actually has to offer, so it's a shame there's no real payoff beyond a small card like Ye Been Warned. The Aphelios expansion gave us the new Powder Pandemonium card, which is just the coolest thematic card ever. Powder Monkey even looks like they are some form of bullets, so by making the entire enemy board vulnerable, you can pick them off with your ephemeral monkeys. But who knows? Maybe in a future expansion we'll get a champion that could just be the perfect fit. Bilgewater didn't get their champion yet during the Shurima expansion, so I'm very hyped to see what they end up getting. My main champion in League is Pyke, so it's easy to guess who I'm rooting for. If it's not the Drowned Ghost Man though, I'd be cool with the Tentacle Lady or the Cigar Gunslinger too. Well, I have nothing more to talk about. I really hope you guys enjoyed this type of video, and I really look forward to reading the comments to see if I missed anything or if I could have added something to talk about with the champions. Next time I would like to go more in depth about the lore of certain champions. For example, Nautilus has no overlap or very little overlap with how he plays in League, but maybe I missed something in the lore and having Nautilus be the sea monster enabler actually makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't know, but that's something I'd like to look at next time. And I also have one final announcement. This is going to be the first video of 7 in a week where every video is going to highlight one champion in Bilgewater. So there's 6 champions left, so tomorrow you'll see a champion, the day after you see another champion, and they'll all be spotlighted in a deck that they perform well in. It's something I'd like to call Bilge Week. So I hope you guys are looking forward to Bilge Week. I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay. Once again, I really hope you liked the video because a lot of work and planning went into it. And it's not something I've ever done before, but I would love to do more of this. So enjoy the rest of the week. I hope you look forward to the videos, and I'll see you guys there.